Allen's Investigate, airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans. Yay! And welcome to the Allen's Investigate with me, Shona Allen.
And I'm Gary Allen, the Cockney Bard.
We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Now, this week, we're going to be doing something a little different as we're going to be telling you a bit about ourselves. We've had a few people ask us about what we're about, who we are. So we'll be discovering and discussing our life and extraordinary spiritual journey, including how Gary discovered he had abilities that would be considered paranormal by many, and how a remarkable sequence of events was destined to a remarkable wedding tale, how it brought us together, and also some wonderful, inspiring stories, experiences, writings, and philosophy. So over to you, Gary. You get started then about you and where you were born.
Well, I was born in the East End of London and in a place called Plaistow. It's a tough area and you have to learn to fight, believe me. Yeah, it's a tough area.
Well, it's the East End, isn't it?
No, it's the East End, yeah. for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so when did you actually start getting paranormal experiences? Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I was, basically about 6 years of age, and I got awoken one night in my dad and mum's prefab. They had a prefabricated home, and basically, what happened? We could hear some sort of jangling, like chains in the hallway, and the next thing, we rushed up. My dad thought there was a burglar, and all the windows were wide open. All the doors were wide open. The TV was blasting out. And
are you sure no one had just crept in and just thought they'd watch your telly or something?
I don't know. They wouldn't have got out alive with my dad. If they did, no. But there was nobody. There was nobody there. So anyway, we managed to get back to sleep. Locked all the windows again and the doors and everything, and went back to sleep. And I think it was a week later, my dad was relaying this story to my Uncle Kenny, his brother. And he said, what a load of bull, he couldn't accept it. But anyway, he said, if that's true, that big mirror above your fireplace is going to fall down. And just as he said that, it came crashing down, thousands of pieces on the floor. And we never had no more, never heard any more about it. So that was quite an amazing experience. And but you've had some experiences when you were little, weren't you?
Well, I did. It was a bit strange, really, because when my parents kind of turned the light off and left me in bed and went downstairs to go and watch a bit of TV, I actually felt someone quite regularly used to come and sit on my bed because, you could feel it just drop down. So that was a bit, I didn't like that very much, actually, at the time. And I would hear voices and things at the end of the bed. And I think probably one of the most kind of scary, weird experiences when I was a child was I'd go off to sleep and then I'd drift off. And the next thing I was floating down our staircase.
Oh God,
and then
a bit of astral travel.
Yeah, I think so. Well, this used to happen regularly. So, it wasn't a dream.
No.
So I'd be floating, literally flying down the staircase. And then, of course, when I got to the bottom, I went bump and it woke me up.
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh, what happened? What happened? And it was only in later life that I then discovered actually what was going on.
That's a weird experience, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was quite strange. But anyway, so I had a few of these and it was, fairly consistent through growing up as well.
Yeah, just as a young'un, really.
Yeah, well, what about you?
Well, I told you, but that experience I had when I was about 6 or 7, I didn't have any more experiences till I was 33. Okay. But, I sort of grew up in a tough area, the East End of London, and basically had normal jobs like normal people and You know, I liked the odd flutter on the GGs and all that, and it was useless. I was absolutely useless at gambling. You know, that kind of thing. And, you know, what they call a curry and crumpet man, really. You know, much to my shame, really.
I should think so too.
Well, you know, I never really learned a lot at school. I hated school. I really did, you know, and I left school early, so never got any qualifications. But I managed to do all right. I managed to get some good jobs and that, you know. I had my own business and everything. And then, anyway, it's going back to the paranormal side of things. I was 33 years of age, and I was living on my own, and I was a bit depressed, to say the least, you know, looking at the four walls and wondering what was going to happen. And anyway, so I went to bed and I sort of prayed for some sort of divine intervention. And I said, you know, I really need some help. I'd like something to happen in my life, something a bit, you know, a bit special, really. And the next morning when I got up, I had this uncontrollable urge to write. I really did, you know, and, you know, I didn't write anything out apart from betting slips. So this was a bit strange.
It was out of the normal for you then, wasn't it? It's not usual for you to do that.
Oh, no, definitely not. Definitely not. But what basically happened was I had this strong desire to write. So I got a pen and a couple of pieces of A4 from the drawer, and I sat down and I started to write. And after about 2 minutes, I'd written about, I don't know, I think something about 260 words, something like that. There was no pause, no punctuation, and it appeared that somebody was talking to me as I was reading it. So I kept looking at it, and I thought, well, it doesn't sound like me. And I thought, this is a weird experience. What the hell was going on? So anyway, I thought what I'll do is I'll phone my mate Dean up. So I got on the phone to Dean. And I was telling him, and I told him what, you know, basically happened. And anyway, he was taking the mickey out of me. And I said, well, why don't you just come round and have a look, you know? So he said, all right, then I'll be round in, I think it was about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, he said. And anyway, he came round, and I was living in Essex at the time. And anyway, he knocked on the door. And as soon as I opened the door, he had a big wide smile on his face. I thought he's taking the piss. And anyway, so
it does sound a bit strange, though, doesn't it? In fairness.
Well, yeah, it was a bit strange. But anyway, so what happened was he walked through the door, and for some unexplainable reason, I grabbed his left shoulder, right, and I sort of squeezed it, and then I stepped back from him, and he started to rotate his arm in, you know, 180 degrees, and I thought, what's he doing?
Pretending to be a windmill.
I thought, what's he doing? He said, I can't believe it. And I said, what? And he said, what did you just do? And I said, I don't know. What do you mean? I said, I squeezed your shoulder, which I don't know why I did it. And he said, you know what, Gary? He said, I busted it in karate. And he said, I couldn't move it above shoulder right. I went, what? He said, no, it's true. He said, I busted it in karate. So anyway, with that shock, we both sat down. And then he said, let's have a look at that writing you've done. So anyway, so I showed him it, and he said, read what it says, you know. So I read it out, and he said, you know what? He said, that don't sound like you at all. He said, do you think you could do it again, like, you know, in front of me? And I said, honestly, Dean, I said, I don't know. I said, but I'll give it a go. So I got some more paper and started writing again, you know. And anyway, and it kept writing and writing, same again. No pause, no punctuation, no grammar. And anyway, after a couple of pages, very quickly written, he said to me, can you read what you put down there? So I started to read it to him, and everything was going well. He couldn't understand, but everything was going well until I read the bit out about his wife's doctor's appointment.
Okay.
So I said, your wife's had a doctor's appointment. And he said, are you having an affair with my wife? I said, no, but thanks for the tip. Anyway, now the reason he said that.
I wonder if he's watching.
Well, probably. Hello, Dean, if you are. But he was so shocked by this, he spurted all his coffee all over the floor, you know. And he would do, yeah. So anyway, he phoned up his wife and he said, you know, have you seen Gary? She said, I haven't seen him for 5 years. So with this shocked Dean so much that he left quickly after that, and I never saw him for another 10 years.
Oh, crikey, that did
I think
shock
it was
him,
about
didn't
10
it?
years. Yeah, I shocked him all right. And anyway, this was such an amazing experience to me. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll try it every single day. And every single day I picked up the pen and a piece of paper and I would start writing. And whatever it was telling me things about my life and what was going to happen in the future and everything. So I thought it was, quite remarkable. And anyway, as this progressed, I started getting some philosophy. And, it's like really deep, profound philosophy. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And like the next minute, I'm getting the Sun newspaper looking at the horses. So it was like, and it's like still the same old Cockney EastEnder, but something was happening with me. Something was changing with me, and I could feel that.
What do you think it was then?
I had no idea. Absolutely not a clue what the hell was going on. It was some sort of extraneous source was communicating with me, and I had no idea what it was. Right? I absolutely had no idea. And anyway, so all of a sudden, I sat down one day and was starting getting this philosophy and poetry. And then can I just read you one of the poems that came through? This is an early one, and it's called Astronomy Speaks. Most beauteous the stars, astronomy speaks. Heavens abide the twinkled dust. Eternities roll thy favoured tongue. Disenchanted arrows of petulance rear a cankered head, embarking a density of ignorance wherein celestial orbits rise and fall. Piteous thine mind, where visions deem thy sight an erroneous intrusion. Seek thy setting sun, and fleeting thy vision, where glorious beams of light do descend from heavenly spheres, embracing solitude and harmony forthwith. And yet, in persuasive eye, deprive the substance of the soul, wishing thy travels ascend to beyond thy visionary sight, to fields of stars and a rolling universe beyond thy mind.
Now that doesn't sound like you, does it?
Not really. No. Not really. So
Cockney EastEnder.
Yeah. So, and what I would do every day, I would say, could I have some poetry better than the one yesterday? And I was asking for a lot. But anyway, I didn't have a clue what was happening. Anyway, I had no idea. So I carried on and every day, same thing, getting the pen, getting the paper, same thing every day. And then one day, they said to me that I was going to write a book of prophecy, right?
Okay.
So, and they said you're going to get some this month, some next month, and some the month after. So I thought, well, that sounds quite exciting. And anyway, so I started to write this book of prophecy. And it's written in a religious way. I'm not religious at all. I can't stand religion. You know that. But anyway, I don't have a religious bone in my body. But having said that, whoever was writing or channeling this material through me, he totally believed in Jesus Christ and totally believed in the message of the Lord and that. And anyway, he was talking about how there would be fires, earthquakes, hurricanes, places on the planet which would be too hot. And it was all because of mankind and what they'd done. And, we're 20 years down the road now, or 25 years, whatever it is. And this sort of thing is happening all over the world. There are fires and earthquakes and hurricanes and places on the planet which are a bit too hot. So, I don't believe in global warming, as you know. But nevertheless, this is what this guy was saying. So,
Did you feel a bit scared by it, though? Because, it's to get something that's so different like that coming through, sort of like prophecies and things. Did it kind of scare you? Because I think it would do a lot of people, wouldn't it?
Well, I tried to approach people and talk to them about, what was going on. And, and I got a couple of books out and see if I could understand it. Because someone said to me, well, it sounds like you're doing automatic writing, some psychic person said. And I said, well, what's automatic writing all about? And they said, well, you just can't control the hand and you're just writing fast.
Over,
you're taken over. And I said, well, it doesn't happen like that with me. I said, basically, I pick the pen up and I start writing and then I can stop and then start again. So
you can do it at will.
At will, yeah, 24/7. So I said, well, that's, it sounds it sounds to me like, it does sound to me like automatic writing. So I sort of said, well, no. And then basically, you know, someone was saying to me, why don't you go to spiritual awareness classes? And I wasn't interested in that, you know. It you know, it was a bit way out there for me. So I just carried on doing what I was doing. And, you know, and then one day I got a message and it said to me that I had to go to Southend, you know.
Okay.
So I finished this writing and it said, you got to go to Southend, but you got to go there within the next half hour. And I thought, well, I ain't even ready. So I quickly got ready. Now, Southend for me at the time was about 15 minutes drive. And I thought, well, what happens if I go there and, you know, there's nothing there? Anyway, they told me that there was going to be someone called Maureen and there was going to be a pub called The Ship. Well, it was they said there's a ship, actually, a ship outside of this pub I've got to find, you see.
Okay.
So I thought, right, if they're talking about a ship, where's the logical place you'll go?
On the seafront.
On a seafront. Well, Southend is a seafront, seaside place. So I thought, right, I'm going to go down there, go along the seafront and see if I can find a ship that's outside a pub, basically. So anyway, and they also said to me that there'll be items of a ship on the inside of this pub. So they gave me a clue and they said it'll be a quaint little pub, right?
Right.
So as I go walking down the seafront at Southend, and I come across this massive pub called The Ship. And I thought, surely that's not it. That's you know, they said it was a quaint little pub. So anyway, but I thought, I'll go in there. So I popped into the pub and there was the barman was there cleaning the glass. He was the only person in there. And I thought, so how am I going to approach him with this anyway? So I gave him the piece of paper that was written and I said, can you tell me if you know where this pub is? Right. So he read it and he said, quaint items of a ship around the inside, little pub, you know, Maureen. He said, yes, I can tell you where that is. He said, that's my dad's pub. And he said, Maureen is the barmaid. And he said, it's 200 yards down there on the left-hand side.
Right.
So anyway, I didn't tell him how I got this writing. So I took the writing and I said, thanks very much. So I went down there and I walked into this place. It was called Smithy's Bar. And it was a quaint little pub. And in the inside, it had items of a ship and everything, like diver's helmet and that kind of stuff. And as I walked in, there were two birds. Well,
two birds.
There were two women.
That's a Cockneyism.
It's a Cockneyism for women. Anyway, there were two women at the bar, right? And as I walked up to the bar, I said to the barman there, is Maureen here? So he said, no, Maureen's on vacation or on holiday. So he said, what can I do for you? And I thought, what the hell am I going to say now? I ain't got a clue what I'm going to tell him. Anyway, as I did that, one of the two women standing next to me, she said, you're a medium, aren't you? You're a psychic. I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, you are. She said, and she said, I have to tell you, you have to read Ecclesiastes in the Bible, or Ecclesiastes, whatever they call it. And she said, you've got a wonderful life. You're a Jesus-like figure. You've got a wonderful life. I thought, what the hell is she talking about? I don't even like the Bible. What the hell is she on about? Anyway, she gave me her card and her name was Frankie. And I walked out the pub and I thought, what the hell was that all about, honestly? And I went home and this kind of thing was starting to happen to be regular.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've heard a lot of people say as well that all spirit, they don't know time. They don't understand time, but clearly this particular experience demonstrates that actually they must have had some kind of comprehension of time to get you to the right place at the right time.
Well, she said that she never goes in there on a Wednesday. So, and she turned up. And anyway, I was thinking to myself, you know, I don't know what this thing about Jesus-like figures are all about, you know. But later on, after many, many years, you begin to understand it's just about light, basically. It's nothing to do with Jesus at all. It's just, you know, it's the ability to heal, the ability to foresee the future and that. It's nothing to do with being a prophet going all over the world, really. It's just, you know, just you may, if it's a teacher, then, you know, fine. But anyway, so that was on that occasion. And then shortly after that, I done some more writing, and by this time I was still doing the poetry and philosophy. In actual fact, I'll just have a look, see if I can read you a little bit of philosophy, you know. So this was the sort of stuff that was coming through me. When people showed me envy, I showed them beauty. When people ridiculed me, I showed them truth. When I showed them truth, they showed me anger. When they showed me anger, I saw a great weakness in them. So that was a sort of, and I love that sort of stuff. I really did. So I was thrilled when that was started coming through, And then anyway, all of a sudden, I'd done another lengthy piece of writing, and this time they were telling me to go to Belgrave Square
in London.
Yeah, in London. And this time they gave me the number. It was 33 Belgrave Square.
Okay.
Now, they were telling me that I had to go there within the next hour. And, I lived basically, I didn't know where Belgrave Square was. So I had to find out, but I knew it was in London anyway. I managed to track it down. And I think it was somewhere about an hour and 3/4. And I managed to make it to Belgrave Square anyway. So 33 Belgrave Square. So I go to Belgrave Square and I find number 33, and the door was open. And I thought, well, this is unusual, for a door to be open. Why is the door open? And so I walked in there, and some bloke behind the counter, he said, "Welcome to the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain." What? I said, what? He said, yeah, this is the Spiritual Association of Great Britain. And he said, can I help you? And anyway, as he said that, two girls come in. And
you didn't call them birds.
No. Show a little respect here. Show a little respect. Two young ladies come in.
That's better.
Yes, indeed. Two young ladies come in, and they were very pretty girls, and they were twins. So I thought, well, this could be the reason I'm here.
2 for 1.
2 for 1. There we go. And I thought, this is handy. Anyway, but that being aside, the two girls, they came over to me and they said, who's the resident medium? And I said, well, I don't have a clue. I said, having said that, I said, I could perhaps tell you what you need to know. And I said, I've been getting lots of insight into people's lives and my own life and everything. And so I told them a few things, and they went, wow, that's amazing. How did you know that? And I said, well, I don't. It's just intuition. I don't know anyway. And so they said, would you like to come down and have a cup of tea downstairs? So I had my writings with me at this point, and I was telling them about the ability and how it came to me and everything. And we went downstairs into this tea room, and what happened when I'd done the writing, they told me I was going to meet a man there, right? So I thought, well,
so it wasn't the twins then?
No, that was the disappointing thing about it, because I remembered that it was a bloke I was supposed to meet, and I thought, damn. So that was a bit of a blow. But anyway, when I walked in to the tea room with these two girls, I looked over and there was one person sitting on his own, right? And it was an elderly gentleman with grey hair and everything. So as we walked in, the girls were saying, go over and show him your writings. And I thought, what?
As you do.
Yeah, well, go and show me. And so they were prompting me anyway. So I said to the elderly gentleman, I said, would you mind if I sat down? He said, not at all, dear boy. You're welcome to sit down. And the girls were still saying, go on, show me your writings. So he said, what's all this writings about? And as I went to show him the writings, a name popped into my head. And so I said, who's Eula? And he said, do I know you? He said, have I ever seen you before? And I said, no. I said, why? And he said, because Eula is the name of my wife who died some 15, 16 months ago. And he said, I've come here today to maybe find out something. Yeah. Well, that was amazing. And I said, what's your name? And he said, my name is Ronald, right? And I said, well, that's funny, because I've been given Ronald recently, the name Ronald, and they told me I was going to not only meet you, but become great friends with you in the future. And so that was this man, Ronald Bailey. Yeah. And he told me that he was a friend of John Ford, the actor, and Sheila Hancock. So anyway, I gave him my card. And then a couple of weeks later, after this remarkable meeting, he telephoned me out the blue.
Okay.
And he said, it's Ronald, and I met you that day at the Spiritualist Church. Anyway, by this time, I'd done a few more poems and everything. Anyway, but I read him that one, Most Beauteous of Stars. And he said to me, that's amazing. He said, it sounds like some sort of Shakespeare stuff. And I said, who's Shakespeare? You know, yeah. Who the heck is Shakespeare? Anyway, he said, you don't know who Shakespeare is? I said, I don't know Shakespeare. I said, I ain't got a clue. I said, honestly, I don't have a clue who Shakespeare is. Mm. He said he's one of the most famous playwrights ever. I said, honestly, I don't know who he is. I was 33 and didn't know who Shakespeare was. Anyway, and he said to me, well, let me read you one of his sonnets. And I said, what's a sonnet? And he said, it's a 14-line poem. So anyway, he read me one. He said, I'm going to read you this. And he read it. And it was Sonnet 144, Two loves I have of comfort and despair. And when he read that to me, something clicked inside of me. And I thought, this is the path I must look at. And I began to look at the Shakespeare controversy, you know, who wrote Shakespeare, the authorship question. I was going to say, there's
the authorship question, isn't
it? Mm-hmm. And that started me on a wonderful road looking at John Dee and other characters, Queen Elizabeth I. And that's how it really took off in essence. And anyway, so I continued, you know, to sort of keep writing and everything, and I would practice it, and I become a master at it. Every day I would do it, and it seemed I become the gift itself. And I realised, as Ron said to me, he said, you are being educated by this extraneous source, whatever it is. Wherever it's from, you know, and suddenly I was sort of like, you know, getting into the philosophy and all this sort of stuff, and I started to really, I don't know, it was just like, it was like an education, the education I didn't have at school, or nothing, you know.
I mean, when you did this, I mean, was it something that you could just sit down and do it, you know, at will, or was it you'd suddenly get like an urge to write something?
No, well, the poetry, I had the urge to write the poetry, right? So I was getting inspired for that. But the normal everyday conversation between me and a pen, sounds mad, doesn't it? Between me and this pen and a piece of paper was whenever I wanted to do it.
Right.
Whenever. And I could just pick up the pen and away it went. And when I stopped, the writing would stop. And I would pick up the pen again and write. And I was having this pure conversation.
So I think really you could say that you were tapping in to an extraneous source of information, weren't you?
Exactly.
You'd found or discovered quite by accident or by design, we don't know, how to access this.
Yes.
Which is interesting, isn't it? And then, of course, later on, the healing. I mean, you were talking about healing Dean earlier, but then you had some more experiences.
Oh, I did. Yeah. I mean, there's a wonderful story. And it's Ronald said to me that he had a friend who had an horse stables. And so anyway, he said he'd spoken to a lady and she's got this horse. And he said, Gary said, she's absolutely loaded. And he said, if you can do anything for this horse, said she will make you famous and wealthy, right? So I thought, well, that sounds just a ticket. That sounds just a ticket, right? So I said to him, Ron, I'll be straight over. I'll be straight over. So anyway, I travelled all the way to, what did he used to live in? He used to live in Watford, in the Watford area, yeah. So anyway, I thought myself, right, I'll shoot over there. Harrow, sorry, he lived in Harrow. Ron lived in Harrow. So I shot over there and made acquaintance with Ron again. It was wonderful. He's a wonderful man, Ron. And so basically what happened was that he took me on a bus and we went to this stables, right? And it was like something like from Dallas. It was, I've never experienced anything like it in my life, you know what I mean? From the East End, from all rough and ready, and that, you know what I mean?
Buses, horses,
I'm greeted by this guy with a, you know, with a highbrow voice and everything, right? And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? What's he going to think of me as a Cockney, you know? And I was a lot more rougher than I am now. I'm somewhat refined these days. But anyway, in those days, when I in those days when I met this guy, and he was really posh, you know, and oh, hello, and all this kind of stuff, and so he gives me his dog, right? So I pick his dog up, and it was some I don't know, little white thing, I don't know what it was anyway, but I just cuddled the dog. I'm not kidding you. This is the God's honest truth. I cuddled the dog, and I put the dog down, and then the dog started running all over the field, right? It was going like a lunatic, right? So Ronald said to me, I can't believe it. And I said, what? He said, I can't believe it. He said, you know what, Gary? He said, that dog has been running about on 3 legs, from my knowledge, for the last 2 years. He said, I can't believe it, right? So anyway, I just thought, well, I don't understand it. I ain't got a clue what's going on anyway. But anyway, with that, once I'd done that, he said, I'd like you to come and look at a couple of my horses, because I'd gone to see this other horse for this Jewish lady, right? So anyway, so he said, I've got one horse here. He said, the vet's told me it could never be ridden again, right? So he said, see what you can do. Well, what I did, you know a lot about horses, don't you? Well, you know, having ridden horses and that, you know. But anyway, so what I did, I got my hand and I put my hand in front of the horse, and he seemed transfixed. Okay. Right? He never moved. Right? So then I don't know this horse from Adam. And then I put my hand on the horse's back. And anyway, it's fantastic. So and then I looked at this other horse, this Jewish lady's horse. It was named Orja. And he was really beautiful horse, I tell you. And anyway, I gave the horse some healing. Didn't know what I'd done, really, to be honest. So gave him a little, just 5 minutes, a little bit of healing. And anyway, so I left it, went home, come back. And then I got a phone call a week later. And Ron was really excited. And he said, Gary, he said, this is amazing. He said, do you know that horse that you came down to help? I said, he said, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said his horse, they've been able to ride it again. He said, it's a miracle. He said, and the other horse, he said, had something wrong with its eyes. And he said, and she tells me that he's done great since you've done the healing. So I thought, fantastic. I'm going to be loaded now. I'm going to be famous. And you know, this was a sort of thing. I thought, yes, I've cracked it. You know, I'm going to make it big now. Anyway, so anyway, I get a phone call from Ron a few days later, and he said, and his voice was really low. And I said, what's the matter, Ron? And he said, well, you know that horse that you healed? I said, yeah. I said, what, the Orja? He said, yeah. He said, the owner has said now it was the grass that he ate. It was nothing to do with your healing, right? Yeah. So anyway, I was really mad. I was mad. And so I picked up the pen and I started writing. So then this extraneous source said to me, Gary, did you do the healing for yourself to become rich and famous, or did you do it for the horse? Right? Yeah.
Lesson.
Oh dear. Which I had a large slice of humble pie and realised that perhaps, you know, it wasn't about fame and fortune, and you know,
it's about intent.
It was about the intent. Exactly.
Having the right intent.
Exactly. Yeah. You know,
I find that myself, you know, through life that, I mean, I call it spirit, but whatever you want to call it, the extraneous source or the muses or whatever. You know, you do go through a series of sort of lessons and tests, and it's shaping you as a person. You kind of start off as an unpolished diamond. And as you go through life, I think through all these trials and lessons and everything else and learning, that you become more and more polished as a diamond.
Exactly. Well, it's as in Freemasonry, it's polishing the ashlar, making yourself a better human being, perfecting the soul, isn't it? That's what it's all about. Exactly. But anyway, you know, it was such a remarkable thing. And the lessons I was learning, you know, tons of lessons. And this ability continued right the way through. And then we find, you know, with the philosophy and everything, and the poetry was getting better and better. And I was I was doing poems about the mind, about death, about war, about love. You know, perhaps I should read a war poem You'd like to hear a war
Yeah, I
poem?
would. You've written quite a few war poems in
I
particular,
have
haven't
indeed.
you?
Yes,
So
I have indeed.
whoever the people are inspiring you.
Well, yeah, I've got one here, and it's called "Etched in Some Memory." And praying for this day to end as death surrounds me, as scared as any man, yet I know no more than a child, suffering each friend's demise as in a horror I reel, sacrificing my sanity and all I once knew, little as that was. Cold bodies, charred bodies, faceless bodies abound, hearing the screams of fallen mates and those I know not. Every sound I hear magnified in hell's tortured mind, nearing death oneself as shells descend. Good God. Dreams, optimism, youth-filled hope, banished to nothing. As pity rolls down my face in misshaped tears, pray for me, won't you? Every soldier dreams a victorious end, if only. Laid in mud, sacrificial lambs, butchered and slain, etched in some memory in years to come, me and my fallen chums. It's an extremely poignant poem, you know.
And of course, with this gift, if you like, I mean, it's something I personally, and I know you do as well, we believe that every single human being has this ability within them, that we all have access to this.
Well, you have, you certainly have access to.
It's more
to
pronounced
the
in some than others,
yeah, for
of
sure.
course.
Yeah.
But I believe everybody has this. But this actually led us on our journey together, didn't it? Our meeting.
Well, it did. Yeah, it did. I mean, you know, before I go off of that subject there, which is very important, is that, you know, not only did it lead me to the Shakespeare conspiracy and all that, but it led me to understand that characters like Keats and Shelley, William Blake, you know, you name it, Rudyard Kipling, Agatha Christie, a number of people, including the one who wrote The Soldier, Rupert Brooke, yeah. They all were inspired. So, and then I began to understand that, yeah, you know, people do get inspired. They write brilliant works, you know.
Well, I think that's what Plato termed the muses. He said the muses are upon me, and I think that's possibly what he was talking about.
Right, so I know you're keen to tell the story of how we met.
Well, I think you should tell it, because I think it's a get out clause, isn't it? I think you should, because you start from your
Well, I'll
point.
start, and then at some point you'll come in and you'll tell me what was happening from your end. Right. Yes, let's begin. Right. So I'm on a train going to Essex, and I'm sitting opposite a blonde lady, and this is not Shona. And you know, there was some thoughts going through my head, and you know, I won't really tell you that. But anyway, I'm sitting next to this blonde lady, and you know, the question was in my head, I was thinking, has she got stuck in? Oh, anyway, yeah, trust me. Anyway. So, just as I was thinking that, the next thing that came into my head was tell her Peter, right? So I ignored it, and then I heard it again, tell her Peter, and I ignored it again. And then within a space of a minute, I'd heard it 3 times. You must tell her Peter. So what I did, I said to this lady, I said, I'm really sorry to interrupt your journey. I said, but do you know Peter? And she said, gosh, she said, Peter's my boss. She said, how do you know? And I said, well, I'm intuitive. And she said, oh, my friend's intuitive. She said, let me give you my card because I have to get off now. And she got off, but she gave me her card. So had I not given her that message at that particular point in time, it would have been gone forever. Okay. So this is why this is so important that you listen to that voice, you know, that voice in the head. Anyway, so it was about, I think it was about 2 weeks after that, she phoned me up, and we got chatting, and we became good friends. And after a while, we lost contact, and it was about 7 years later. And I'm laying in bed, and I could hear a voice in my head saying to me, Gary, you must contact Maggie. And I thought, Maggie? I said, when am I going to contact Maggie? So anyway, I got up and I looked through my diary and I had Maggie's daughter's number. So I phoned up Maggie's daughter and I said, do you know where Maggie is? And she said, yeah, she's moved to Norfolk. I said, really? She said, yeah, she's up in Norfolk. She said, I'll give you a number and you can ring her up. So I did. And I said, hello, Maggie, it's Gary. And how are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And anyway, she said, you can come down in about 6 months because I'm decorating and everything. And it'd be nice to see you. So we're in total now 7 years and 6 months since I met her on the train. And anyway, I come down to Norwich and I meet Maggie, and I've got a young son at the time. So I'm pushing my young son. And we went into Ottika's bookshop. And we go up the stairs and I see another lady in there. And, I meet a lot of ladies. Don't worry about that. No girl's safe with me. Anyway, that's not true, actually. Anyway, so what basically happens is I start talking to this dark-haired lady and I start telling her some things that I'm getting in my head. And she said, that's amazing. How do you know that? And anyway, I told her again. I said, oh, yes, I'm intuitive. And she said, wow. And I said, if you come to see me tomorrow, I'll tell you the address I'm at. If you come to see me tomorrow, I will change your life, right? Well, I didn't realise it changed my life about her. But anyway, so she said, well, I'll have a think about it, she said, right? So the odds of her really coming were not that high. But anyway, so I forgot all about it. And the next day, I get a knock at the door and open the door, and it's this lady. So she comes in and sits in the chair, and I'll say, I've got to give you some healing. So that's healing. With a H. That's the problem with the East Enders, you know.
Healing.
Heal and healing. Oh, harmony. Anyway, so what basically happens, I give her some healing just for a couple of minutes, probably 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was. And she left, okay? So never heard anything from her for about 3 months. And then out of the blue, she phones me up. And she said, Gary, I must come to London. I was living in London at the time. She said, I must come to London to thank you. And I said, what for? And she said, well, what you didn't know, when you gave me that healing, she said, I had multiple sclerosis. And she said, and your healing helped me considerably. And I've been doing all kinds of things that I couldn't have done before the healing. So I said, well, you don't have to thank me for that. That's, you know, that's okay. Anyway, she said, I'm coming down if that's all right. And I want to thank you personally. So she did. So she come to London. So we're now 7 years and 9 months. Gosh. 7 years and 9 months. Don't forget that. And anyway, she comes to London. She knocks at the door. I open the door. And as she comes to walk in, she said to me, you don't like blondes, do you? And I thought, what a strange thing to say. I said, well, I prefer dark-haired girls. I got in. And she said, well, last week I was at an awareness class where I met a blonde lady. So I said then, does this blonde lady have a red car that pulls to the left? She said, I don't know. I said, is she in a relationship she shouldn't be in? She said, I don't know. And I said, and has she got a brother? She said, I don't know. She said, but I'll tell you what, tonight I'm going to ring her up. And she said, and you can ask her yourself. So that night, I rang up and I asked this lady, I said, do you have a red car that pulls to the left?
It was true. I did. I had a tracking problem on my tyres, yeah.
And was you with a boyfriend you shouldn't have been with?
I was indeed, yeah.
And did you have a brother?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this was quite exciting. So I thought, wow, that's good. And anyway, so I gave Shona my email address. And I said, if you ever need any advice or anything, please write to me, and you know, and left it at that.
Keep in touch, yeah.
Keep in touch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was that night, was it that night?
Yeah.
That night, Shona sent an email through, and there was an attachment on the email. So I clicked on it, and I'm sitting next to Jan, the lady she met at the awareness class, and as I open the attachment, I see a photo of Shona, and I said, that's the girl I'm going to marry. To Jan, I said, I'm going to marry her on the 23rd of April, 2004. I said, we're going to get engaged on the 14th of February, 2003. And I said, and the date at that time was November 2002. So that meant if I was going to get engaged to this lady I've never met, it would have to be within 3 months. And a year and a half later, we're supposed to be getting married. And I said, we're going to have a medieval wedding. So, I mean, it sounded absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, so I came back down to Norwich. And when I came back down, I met Shona for a drink. And Shona was interested in the psychic side of things, or the intuitive side of things. Mm-hmm. So we met and we had a drink, and there was absolutely no chance of any relationship. From Shona's point of view, it was just a drink. And me, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to marry you. And they told me it's going to happen, isn't it?
If you'd have told me that at the time, I'd have been out the door.
Oh, my God, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Surely it's going to happen. Anyway, so basically, when we got to Christmas, I hadn't heard from Shona. And this voice is telling me, this voice in the head is telling me, you've got to buy an engagement ring and book 2 flight tickets to Roslin Chapel for your engagement, right? So I thought, God, well, I did believe in it. So I believed in it. I'd experienced so many things that came true. I had to believe in it. So I bought her an engagement ring and I booked 2 flight tickets to Roslin Chapel in Edinburgh and for our engagement. Anyway, so I've heard nothing over Christmas from Shona. And I'm thinking, what a chump I am. I've just bought a ring and, someone's really took the mickey out of me here and got me on a right wind-up. Anyway, so we're now into, what was we?
December.
December's gone. Then you phoned me out the blue, didn't you? That was about 3 weeks before we're due to get engaged.
Yeah, I did indeed. And I phoned you and I said, I know, Gary.
I said, you know what?
I said, I know I'm going to marry you, because I'd seen it. I'd seen a vision, and I knew that you'd done the book In Search of the Swan, and I saw 2 swans in a heart shape, and I knew that I was going to marry you.
Oh, it's incredible. So, and anyway, so we got together. We had everything in common. It was absolutely magical. We got engaged in Roslin Chapel, and
I saw that as well. I had a vision of this because Gary basically put a ring in a red rose when he proposed, and I'd already seen this before we went. So
you're right, bloody spoiled it, didn't you?
Sorry.
God.
So that's the only trouble, isn't it? We don't tend to have any secrets.
No.
We tend to kind of go do.
Tuned in.
And we know, don't we?
So anyway, we got engaged. And a year and a half later, we had a medieval wedding. I was dressed as a Knights Templar.
On St. George's Day.
St. George's Day, the 23rd of April, 2004.
Which is also Shakespeare's birth and death day, interestingly.
Supposed to be, yes. Mm-hmm. Supposed to be. And, and it was absolutely magical. And Shona's mum, when she was alive, bless her, she kept saying, in April, we're always showers in
April. Umbrellas for the guests because it's going to rain.
And I said, honestly, Anne, sweetheart, it's going to be a hot day. It is. I said, they've told me it's going to be a hot day. And we had a 70-degree day, and it was televised by the BBC and ITV.
Which you also predicted.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely magical it was. And we had Justin Nights and everything, didn't we?
We did.
And then, so that was magical, as whatever you want to call them,
as predicted. But
or...
we didn't actually have any dates. So although I went and met you, from my part,
no, we've never had a single date.
So we haven't had any dates, and I went down and stayed with Gary, and we just found we had absolutely everything in common. Yeah. So to me, I think the whole meeting was just destined. And we've been together ever since, haven't we? And I'm not saying that we never have any arguments or anything.
We've never had a row, dear. Never had a row.
You crossing your fingers behind your back there. But it is very, very strange how, all these series and sequences of events, how they all conspired to basically bring us together.
It's an impossible story, but it's perfectly true.
There are some very, very magical things that happen in life.
Yeah. And then of course, we go to America on our honeymoon, didn't we?
We did.
And that was magic. I'll tell you the one wonderful story. We had lots of fantastic stories about Shona, I'll tell you. But one magical story I remember was we were going down to have a Chinese. We was on Sunset Boulevard, weren't we? We were staying in what they call it, the Rock House or the Mad House, the Hyatt Hotel. What was it called? Do you remember what
I think the nickname was the Riot House.
Riot House.
There used to be a lot of rock stars.
That's it. Anyway, so we're walking down Sunset Boulevard, and anyway, we come across this black vagrant, and he asked me for some money, and he was telling me he was a Vietnam vet, and he showed me a big scar on his back, I think, but. And I said to him, I'm sorry that I don't have any cash on me, but I promise you that I'm going to go back to the hotel and I will get you some money. I promise you. So anyway, I'm as good as my word. When I say something, I do it. And we came back and I gave him $10. And he said, I must do something for you. And what did he do?
He sang that lovely song, How Wonderful Life Is When You're in the World.
Your song, Elton John, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was magic, wasn't it?
And it brought me to tears. It was such an amazing, magical moment.
And we invited him for breakfast the next day,
and he never came, did he?
He didn't come.
And and the thing is, I often think of that man, and I think about what life he had, and whatever happened to him. He was telling us the story of how Johnny Depp had given him a suit. For a £1,000 suit, wasn't it?
Apparently, he took him shopping on Rodeo Drive and bought him this $10,000 suit. And he said, it was a really beautiful thing for him to do, man. He said, but where am I going to wear it?
Where am I going to wear it, man? Yeah. So, and he said Bette Midler, she was very generous to him as well, wasn't she? But we have no idea where he is, and it's very sad. He's probably dead now. But what a sad story
there are some really beautiful things. I mean, we've been led on very wonderful journeys, but also I think with the prediction side of things, it can have quite an unsettling kind of side to it as well. I mean, with your story with Sheila.
Oh yes, I had a wonderful friend, Sheila. She was a very, very spiritual soul, and we used to travel all over the place together, looking at Templar sites. I mean, we went to Temple Combe, we went to the Templar Church, we went to Roslin Chapel. We went all over the place looking at things. We even went to France, and there's a Jean Cocteau mural in Leicester Square, which was fascinating, and we went to see that and everything. And anyway, we went to France. I went to France with Sheila, and then the relationship suddenly went. It was incredibly close. I mean, she was an elderly lady. It went incredibly close, and then it just dissipated into thin air. So I lost contact, and anyway, I'd been thinking of her an awful lot in this week, and I phoned my son up here who lives in France, and I said to him, have you heard from Sheila? And he said, not recently, Dad. I said, well, I've been thinking of her so much this week in particular. And anyway, so I'm laying in bed on I think it was a Saturday night or a Friday night, and I'm listening to the radio, and they start talking about sorry, I missed a very important point about this. Let me go back. About 17 years earlier, I'm with a friend, John, and Sheila, and I'm saying to John, I started talking about reincarnation. Now, I wasn't really into that, but anyway, for some reason, I started talking about it, and I said, you've lived many lives before, John. I said, and died many violent deaths, but I said, you won't in this one, but I can't say the same for Sheila. And Sheila went to bed, and I kept getting fire. So anyway, 17 and a half years later, I'm talking to my son and saying, what's happened to Sheila? Where she is? I don't know, Dad. Anyway, so basically, I'm listening to the radio, and it was either a Friday or a Saturday night. I can't remember. But they were on about this fire in West London, this tower block. And I thought, oh, what's happening there? And they mentioned it was Latimer Road, and I thought, blimey, Holland Park. And I thought, well, that's where me and Sheila used to go to have a coffee. So I run downstairs, and I went on a computer, and I traced where we used to have the coffee to where this block of flats was on fire. And I thought, bloody hell, it's Sheila's block. And anyway, So I didn't know Sheila's second name. I only knew her as Sheila. But I went on Twitter, and a Twitter message from her son came up there, popped up, and it said Sheila's missing. And I thought, oh my God, she was in the fire at Grenfell Tower, and she lost her life on the 16th floor. And and I think to myself, how can you get that 17 years previous? That you don't know what it's going to be, but
it's incredible, isn't it? And then of course you had the experience with the dream as well. I mean, because you've had dreams too, rather like my great grandma. She used to dream the Derby winners.
Oh, the horse dream.
But you had the
oh
horse
yes,
dream,
I had a horse dream the night before, and I had the number of the horse was number 4. I saw a horse race. The horse came from last to first. Its name was Tedborough. I got his name. I had a betting slip that said 11-1, and it was a winning ticket. So the next day when I got up, I looked at the Sun newspaper, the 210 at Newcastle, 8 runners. Number 4 was Tedborough, and it won the race at 11-1. I told everyone to back it. No one listened to me. No one listened to me. I had 20 quid on it and won a couple of £100, which was rather nice. But it just shows that you can't tell what spiritual time is all about. 17 years and one day, the next minute, it's incredible. And our guest Guy, and some of the stories the other chaps tell us, you can't believe it, because I mean it's like instantaneous. It happens. So
yeah,
it's incredible. Absolutely mind blowing. And what about with the tarot cards? Now you talk about incredible.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Because I mean, you shuffled the tarot cards.
78 tarot cards, yeah.
78 tarot cards. You shuffled them, and then you picked the
magician card.
Yeah.
6 times in a row, wasn't it? After being shuffled.
After shuffled each time as well. I mean, I don't.
And you and your mum saw that, didn't you?
Yeah, my mum.
That was incredible, wasn't it?
My mum witnessed that, and that really was. I think that kind of shook her a bit, because you also healed her knee as well, because she had a really bad knee.
Yeah.
That was arthritis, and it wasn't getting better with treatment from the doctor. So I asked her to give her some healing.
Yeah.
And probably about 2 or 3 days later, I remember my mum saying that it felt like some fingers and things were in her knee, like it was being knitted together. And she kind of forgot all about it. And then normally every morning when she flipped out of bed to get up, normally she was in tremendous pain. Anyway, she just got out of bed one morning and no pain.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So I think all of these abilities, whether it be healing or channeling,
sixth sense,
intuition, prediction, all of these things, I think they are basically soul powers, and if you've got a soul, you've got it.
You've got the power in some way, in some form. Well, I've written 3 books now, haven't I? A Thinking Man, which is the book of philosophy, In Search of the Swan, which is about my life, and Dead Poet's Pen, which contains the poetry that was given to me. So and what you do learn, it's about bringing truth to people. I mean, communing with spirits, if you want to call them spirits, or the afterlife, whatever it is. My ability shows that it's not demonic. I've got wonderful, unless they're all obviously poets and philosophers
and poets,
but there's nothing demonic in that. Having said that, there is a dark side as well. So you just got to be a bit careful. But for me, it's been a wonderful experience for me, and all I want to do is bring truth to people. I want to show them the truth, and I can guarantee that no one will ever find a flaw in that ability, will they? No one, not anybody. You're welcome to try to find it if you can, but there isn't a flaw in it.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time now. So
I hope you've enjoyed the show.
I hope so, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about us anyway. It's not everything. We've got loads more, but there's just not sufficient time to tell you, sadly. But thank you for joining us on The Allens Investigate. You can check us out at www.theallensinvestigate.com. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful, wonderful city of New Orleans, which I hope to visit one day.
Yeah, me too. And I
hope very much that You know, from
Well, I
some
hope
of
they've
the
learned something
stories
tonight,
that
yeah.
we've been sharing that have actually happened to us. I mean, as I say, just a very, very small bit. It's, you know, giving you some idea. I'm also being reminded that we're on Roku.
Yes,
So
don't forget Roku, please.
If you would like to find us on Roku, please dive in and go and have a look, because we've had quite a few shows now, and it would be great if you could. We really enjoy seeing you.
Yeah, contact for the show, www.theallensinvestigate.com.
Allensinvestigate.com.
If you'd like to be on the show, please let us know.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Mwah, mwah. Blowing kisses. Take care.
Bye.